Garrett here with Thinker and Collective. It's been a long day. We're trying to get our nose on the ground with some amazing people, and today and right now is no different. We are here with Tatiana Ciccarelli from Edmentum. Tatiana, say hi to our viewers and listeners.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me, Garrett.
Yeah,
Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm stoked. A lot of my experience, of course, is talking with great people like you. Talk to our viewers and listeners a little bit about what you use for Edmentum.
Cool. So I am a National Solutions Director at Edmentum. So I work across the country with some of our largest districts and at the state level to bring all of the good news and all of our solutions that we have to offer at Edmentum to all of the students across the country and internationally.
That's amazing. And, you know, with Edmentum obviously being in the games for quite a while, what are some of the latest things that Edmentum is bringing to market?
I love the direction that Edmentum is heading in. I've been in Edmentum now for about 5 years, and we are about to blow the doors off of the edtech space because we are firmly, I would say, leading the pack as far as our CTE career connected learning offering. Just acquired Major Clarity.
Wow,
which was
that's amazing.
Yes, it's tremendous. It provides that comprehensive career and college experience for the students. We partner at the state level. A lot of times the districts are wondering how to take that state level policy and actually translate that to boots on the ground, student performance, and implement it in schools. Major Clarity plus Edmentum Career does all of that. We offer 180 courses. We have 60 pathways. It's really incredible. So we are getting our generations prepared to see themselves as prosperous citizens, and that's something that
It's just so important in that learners out there look at the world in a contextual way. A lot of times you get, even in, you know, the middle of the country in rural areas, kids that don't have exposure to some of the possibilities of life. And that's where I see the magic of CTE. You know, one of the thoughts I have always had is like CTE, in my opinion, should be because there's so much rote memorization and regurgitation that happens in schools. Talk to me a little bit. Now, when it comes to Edmentum's platform, you guys quantify success with this CTE programs within your curriculum?
Well, I think that it comes down to partnering. We're a scalable solution. So whether it's the state defining what success looks like via a portrait of a graduate, such as New York State, or all the way down to, you know, the granular level, if it's just a school site that we're working with. First and foremost, we want to understand what the goal is of the plan. For example, when you're thinking about a large state like New York, they want their students to have some level of financial literacy coming out of a CTE program. That is our responsibility to provide. But we also provide another solution that we have called Exact Path. It's our foundational numeracy that is key to financial literacy. So when you're thinking about what success looks like for us, I think that if we have students who are staying in the program and the districts and schools are using it with a level, say, fidelity, we see that we have lower dropout rates, higher graduation rates. We see that students are completing because we have a lot of preparation courses embedded into our courseware, as well as durable skills. We see that students are staying on track. And then the minute that they're out 12th, they have an opportunity to talk to a local industry or a company that we might partner with to create that opportunity for their trajectory to continue.
I was going to say the next steps.
Yeah.
So
it's not just about what happens in the school, it's actually what happens beyond that.
I was just going to say, like, is the intention of Edmentum as we move forward, right, especially with CTE, the rise of CTE, there should be a documentary about it, but is the intention to go into school districts that aren't so familiar and broaden? Is it a support, or is it just a full stack solution?
We're end to end. So when we're thinking about CTE specifically, so our CTE offerings specifically, we target 6 through 12. A lot of schools, districts start to think about college and career when it's too late. 9th grade, when kids are already thinking about how to make a buck, is not the time to talk to students about what they want to be when they grow up.
Some of them make.
When I was in 9th grade, I was already working. And so the dream of what I could have been might have fizzled a little bit because I felt the financial impact of the almighty dollar. So as far as our CTE offering is concerned, it's comprehensive because we have the Major Clarity component. So it's not just the courses, it's the planning, it's the advisory. It follows the student every step of the way. Beyond that, districts that might not be familiar with Edmentum, I was actually talking to someone earlier I said we have a solution for every learner. Those students who are already on an accelerated track and keep the momentum going, or we need to close the gaps, we are not a one-size-fits-all company.
So you're here at FETC 2026. What's your role here? Are you speaking? Are you representing Admentum? Do you have any kind of cool things that you're doing?
We are reconnaissance right now. That's
So
what
I'm
I
wearing
do.
a mic.
I actually come down from the CLA.
I love it.
Hang out with
She had a full
guests
black
here.
outfit on, goggles, the whole.
No, so this is easy for me because I live in, so Orlando's a really quick trip for me. I'm happy to be here, but we wanted to just, I think, listen to what the crowd is saying, the questions that people are asking. Obviously, we want to see what other vendors are doing, but what I to be educator first. So no matter where technology goes, we are making sure that our teachers and our principals are respected as the expert practitioner. We're not removing the skill and the beauty of the teaching profession from the classroom.
Mhm.
We're just there to help make it better and enhance the practice. So that's where we are.
And we're very much aligned because Thinker and Collective is 100+ organizations across the world, all in the mission to humanize education. And that doesn't mean no tech. In fact, that means how do we leverage tech to have, we think it's so important. And, something like AI is driving us to understand what it means to be human a little bit deeper. I don't think that all figures out. And so talk to me about a little bit of what you think of as important when it comes to ensuring that we keep the human in the loop in these types of experiences. I know that's like a cliche word, but what does that really mean?
It's healthy boundaries, which is something that I think we all are constantly learning in our own personal and professional lives, just like reinventing what boundaries are. I think that when the calculator came into the math classroom, everyone was like, that's it. Kids are never going to know anything for themselves. And the calculator ultimately didn't do that. It's a useful tool when you know how to use it and when to use it. We have to have healthy boundaries with tech. You shouldn't be using it as the end all. It shouldn't be replacing. I call them evergreen best practices, like differentiate and data and assessment letters. Those are here to stay, but we have to bring technology in that it makes the teacher's job, I think, more efficient when it increases instructional time and sharpens the educator's skills. But that's not without strong leadership and the ability to say no when it's too much. Panacea, all the things, right? And you just show up and follow this routine, and it removes the nuance and the elegance, I think, from the craft. That's not what Edmentum's here to do. Here to partner with the educator in the journey to never overstep. And I just think that we can do it better than that.
You're so right. Even on the floor in there's so many companies that think it's far more attractive to me when someone says, hey, either we do one thing super well, right? Or we're willing to admit that we're wrong in order to meet the needs of this sense of, and part of what we do at Thinkering is there's too many thought leaders preaching about what we should be doing.
All the stages on the stages.
And how is that landing in classrooms with learners? You know what I mean? And we're passionate about empowering, educators to pull off crazy things, sometimes without even the school district buy-in, which has been super fun to watch these educators get their love of learning back because we give them back agency. There's a direction I'm going here. Is how do you think Edmentum and the platform that you guys have built centers educator agency at the hub and then ultimately student agency?
So the reason why I firmly believe in the company that I work for, and I could never work for a company that I didn't feel was headed in the right direction as strongly as I do. We are educator first, not just in name, but in the company makeup. Everyone that works at Edmentum has some sort of connection to, if not was, a classroom champion. So they don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk. And with that, everything that we provide is digital first, so that it doesn't come in and feel heavy-handed. You can use this in a supplemental capacity. You could use this in an after-school capacity on a Saturday. But we're there to enhance the experience for the teachers. And teachers don't have to follow a script. We flex into their day rather than have them flex into our program. For students, it's the same way. When I think about our courses specific to CTE, we have an interest inventory. So students feel as though, what is available with my skill set and my interests? And if it's not for me, can I pivot? The art of the pivot isn't just for adults in corporate America. That's a durable skill. We also have to make sure that our students feel as though there is programs that are invested in them. So the data that we provide our teachers and our principals and our districts is actionable data. It's not report heavy. You don't have to use attrition.
It's a big word. Look it up.
Everything is very educator friendly, so that we can not only empower educators to always stay in literacy, but have conversations with students so that students feel that holistically the teacher plus solution is working. Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like you did. I was just gonna say, you're like, you must have trained for this. They get you in a room and just hammer questions for you.
Do.
But Tatiana brought you into education. You were telling me you live in Manhattan. Now you live in Palm Beach. These are just very impoverished, rough areas to live. I'm kidding. What brings you to the education service?
I was a New York City public school teacher for a long time. And I come from a long, proud lineage of principals and educators in New York City. My father was second or third generation, American where it was important to get an education. He always used to say that education was the great equalizer. It was going to open up opportunities. No one's going to ever take it away from you.
That's true.
And all of those things were factual. My father was an educator. My mother, ironically, was in sales. The fact that I find myself in the way
Sales
between
and education.
of those two things, I don't think is coincidence. But I believed I didn't need any convincing after I realized the impact that I was making on students. And then as I worked my way up through the district and was very much being tracked to do that. But then EdTech kind of found me, and COVID also happened. And so if ever there is an opportunity for a pivot, there's this creative space when you kind of step into the unknown a little bit, and those durable skills, of resiliency and grit come into play. And then I parlayed right into EdTech, and I still get to use all of my skills, my full wheelhouse, all of the degrees that I have and all the things. But now I get to play and on a larger stage and in conversations, not just with my local district that I was living in and teaching in, but now, broadly across the countries. I'm never leaving.
No, that's very bold. And, I've done it now. Sorry. Yeah, you're fine. Anyway, please throws me back to my session. Okay, so 3, 2, 1. All right. So you clearly come from a long line of amazing educators. And you kind of see two different prototypes when it comes to education. You see someone coming from a long line like yourself, and then you see someone like me who realizes the system sucks. What can I do?
System sucks.
But it's what can I do to actually inform change? My mom always had told me, my mommy had always told me, if you work harder than everyone around you, you'll succeed. And she was right. And, I think that
it's that simple.
It really is that simple. It really is. No, but what do you think? Because I was going back to, it sounds to me like, dare I say, you actually give a shit about the human race and kids, right? Yeah. Do you think, one, I know for a fact, and I'm going to say it is, that's not the macro opinion of a lot of educators, right? They're stuck in this place of red.
Probably.
All that.
Yeah.
What do you think an educator in the next 20 years is going to need on the social emotional side to succeed in a classroom?
Yes.
And now think about the future and where we're headed to.
So I think you're hinting a little bit of burnout, and that's a very real problem that we're facing in education. I think we're constantly swimming against the current. There's no end in sight. I can understand that. I know that this past year, the conversations we had at the state and district level were nervous because there was all of those about funding. And I just kept telling people that I work with and my teams, this is the time where people look for the lighthouse. To be the lighthouse, I have both been the lighthouse and looked for the lighthouse. And so I know that consistency, reliability, and just showing up not as a vendor, but as a thought partner is something that we pride ourselves in being. I think for teachers, they're going to have to carve out a space. I don't know if it's going to happen in the school day, but this might potentially be a place where tech leans in a way that's really helpful. I think that if we can carve out more time for teachers to find a creative outlet or win for them in the day that makes them feel valued as a human, and that brings into, we talk about student agency and student interest, but we never talk about teacher interests. Some teachers are teaching because they need a job, and job versus passion is not always the same thing. I was a math teacher, but I've had So my second degree was in art. People are, how are you going to manage to do these two things? There's the math minded and there's the art. I wanted to bring art into my master's. I had to, because it was a matter of survival for me. My principal at the time also was like, that's Ciccarelli, she's going to do it. He supported and enabled me to be as creative as I needed to be. And so I think that if we use tech in the right way to make the day work smarter, not harder, and I hate that expression, but it is what it is, teachers can slowly bring their own identities back into the fray. Right now, they're just being burned in.
Absolutely. And, you know, for what we see in our, like I said, we have 100+ partners that then push all of their resources to educators in the classroom that think that nothing's possible, that think that we can't do these great, amazing things. And what we found is that one of the things that really rejuvenates educators is bringing them back agency, giving them the ability to be creative in the classroom and exercise that creativity rather than stifling it, telling them there's no before it. A lot of times you get ego in education to say like, no, don't do that. And a lot of times those no's are because don't show me up. Don't go past this line because I don't want to have that conversation. What gives you that care, that drive to actually, the only reason I say this, to be honest with you, is when I listen to you, it seems like you're either studying and very knowledgeable of the subject or that you lived it. And we clearly know it's the second side of things. What keeps you going, especially when, you know, being a school teacher, you're on the ground every day, you see some of the impact that goes on. And I think at a position like yours now, you probably less in classrooms to give you that motivation. What keeps you motivated?
Oh, if there was a better way to say lifelong learner, if someone can figure out how to say that better, please let me know.
Living life with Socratic intention.
Oh, yes. That has the same, you know, rolls off the tongue just the same way.
You're welcome. Good night, everyone.
Perpetual positor. That's a good one.
There you go.
That's a good one. Duration. I think it's that I'm still working under the umbrella of education, values. They know that coming from New York City public schools, you know, it's a very specific system. New York City thinks it's the only city on the planet, and a lot of times it is. But it's a very specific system where I made sure that I would break the fourth wall frequently with my students. They would see me wear goofy outfits, play music.
Love the way you said that.
And teachers, I think, you know, we need to do that more. You know, we've got to cross that line a bit with students in a way that obviously keeps everything professional and keeps the learning at the center. But they need to see that you're a human being. And I brought a lot of humor to it. And I do that now. You know, anyone that I work with, I think would say that
you're goofing off a lot.
I take it seriously enough.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we're in this business. That's the most important thing. And kids are great. You know, like kids are funny. They're fun. They're genuinely, typically positive. They don't want to be on their devices all the time. And when they are on them, they want to feel like they're doing something meaningful. Otherwise, they just want to feel their age. And we should be there to not only help them find who they are and educate them, but also allow them to be the age that they're at. I think growing up in the 90s, we had a lot of that. We had a lot of...
You just said that.
We had a lot of, you know, just like good old fashioned
she was done.
interests, fun, exploration. I wanted to be a marine biologist when I was a kid. And so I had like scale size models of ocean life, which is what everyone is cool to be. And I try to bring some levity and gratitude back into it because ultimately what we're doing is...
I mean, you hear this again too. It's like super cliche of like, you know, we are literally seriously or we can. And I do feel like there is this shift happening now. You know, I love the idea of breaking the fourth wall. That was just so well said because we do say in my schools, because I own 10 preschools across the country, one of the mottos we give our teachers is drop the ego, trust the child. Because there is less and less of that levity in the classroom of like, you know, my favorite moments in classrooms are when teachers bomb and then go, well, that didn't really work, did it, guys? Let's punt and pivot and move on to the next thing.
You're not going to like ruin, you know, tomorrow's thinkers by being yourself. You know, I used to, as a male teacher, if I made a mistake on the board, I go, well, you know, even I make mistakes.
Yeah.
To see that.
But I think that's a more important and valuable lesson than the content that you're trying to teach on the board. Is one, you're showing, of course, that you as the teacher, the authority role, is just a human being. But then two, you're showing that you're willing to fail, you're willing to acknowledge the failure, and you're willing to learn from it and try again. I feel like we miss that a lot in schools when it comes to this whole concept of everybody getting a trophy, can't experience hardship without emotional, overload and burnout and breakdown. Sorry to get so heavy on you, but what do you see as positive as we move forward in the next 5 years when it comes to education, its direction, because you're working with school districts and kind of get a feel for multiple districts across the country?
And it was interesting what you just said, because I just wrote a blog, shameless plug, but on grit and how grit is coming back into the conversation as just a skill that we need to have as people. And grit comes from high expectations and not being afraid to fail. Failure is not the end of the world. It's just an experience to learn and an opportunity to try again. So where do I think we're headed? Is that the question?
Yeah.
I think that we are headed to a place where I kind of feel like we're going, well, we have more technology than ever.
I see where you're going with this.
I actually think we're throwing it back a little bit. When I was in high school, and I think even when I started teaching, the vocational tracks were like a dirty word. You say vocational, don't
you go
say
to auto
trade
shop.
school.
Yeah, what?
I just bought an old Chevy pickup.
Hell yeah.
And I go every 2 weeks to the local auto shop, and I have the gentleman there walk me through another aspect of the truck. And I'm like, this is CTE. I am literally doing the thing. I am in an automotive class right now.
As you should.
Because I want to know if I'm driving this truck from 1979, if something happens to it, Chevy K10, by the way, if something happens, I don't want to have to call somebody and be like, help me, I don't know what I'm doing. Right, exactly. I think that we're actually going to find ourselves in a really nice spot where the kind of technology we bring into the conversation, for example, we partner with Interplay, which brings things like the HVAC experience through VR to our students who might not be able to follow their trip to prepare an HVAC system. That's meaningful. No, that's meaningful.
Absolutely.
And it's also bringing an opportunity to a student who might have felt maybe 10, 15 years ago, the pressure of having to go to college. So we're coming to a place now where we're realizing college is not for everyone. It could be college and career. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Yeah. We should provide opportunities for that exploration. And the tech that we're bringing in, I don't know if it's because the millennials are now the ones that are in charge of things. I'm an elder millennial, but we want to see like a renaissance on the skills and the experience that we saw. So maybe it's us. We're the problem. Hi.
Yeah. I just realized today that the millennials, we knew it all along.
We did.
Right?
They kept making fun of us. Like the Y2K generation.
Terrible music. I mean, just, oh God.
No, we are saving the day.
Yeah, well, and in some ways you are. And I think call out some of the issues that we really need to address as we move forward, which is, and I think you're totally right. I think we're getting to a place where technology is now going to be a walk share app, where you literally just go on, find somebody to take a walk with. It's things like that. Like, I think we crave, my thesis is the onset of AI drove us to ask the most simplest questions. What is work? What is purpose? What is intelligence? And until we really answer those things, I don't think that we're going to be setting our learners up for success. Because I always look at a world of like, in 5 to 10 years, this is real. Kids will have the ability to have a contact that puts a layer over their world that gives them every bit of information they ever wanted without pulling anything out, right? And so then, are we still going to ask them to memorize and regurgitate knowledge? And one of the things that I'm passionate about is like empowering our youth to understand that, like you said, like college isn't the only route. And in fact, a great study out of Harvard just came out around the most successful entrepreneurs are the ones that did the worst in school. And now what does that say? Because entrepreneurs, right? You have Zuckerberg, you have these people that have built game-changing, world-changing tech and ideas and frameworks coming from an area of, not being considered intelligent in school. What do you think about that?
I think that it's not, I think it's coincidental. I think that any sort of genius, and I think a lot of times like genius is something that we deem something like way after the time has passed, right?
Yep.
And so if you look at like any artists,
When they die, right?
right, they're like,
Yeah.
wow, they were, Jackson Pollock, like in the moment, everyone was this guy.
You're throwing pain at
Yeah.
canvas.
And now it's like you go into the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's just like, oh my goodness, obviously this makes so much sense in its chaos. I think that's not coincidental. I think that we have to actually model and enable our students to not feel as though failing equates to being a failure. I have what I missed. What is it? I missed like percent of the shots, but the one shot that I hit was the shot. I failed a lot. I was kicked off the teams. Sixth grade, I think I still have the record for the most missing homeworks in my whole class, 36 in one semester. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's like, look at me now. But I think that it's in society's managing of these people. I think that when you are in some the upper echelons of there's a think tank, you're in a group that kind of is maybe kinder to your failures because you've arrived-ish. Let's say we're working with like 6th or 7th grade students that feel like they're the bottom of the class. That's not necessarily the space for them to feel as though like those failures are easily forgiven. And so that's the problem. How do we translate, that exceptionality across the board rather than failure is acceptable in exceptional circles, but failure should be more broadly acceptable, I think, because it forces you to be
Failure is say that,
ever
dude.
said.
What did you just say?
I don't know. I blacked out. That's how I say it.
Where am I? No, it was failure. Oh my goodness. We'll play it back. We'll watch it back
Please.
for sure because that was super, super poignant. And you're absolutely right. I think the more we get, and I'm not stamping, thief grades on kids, is the most detriment to education.
Experience that
Sure.
I had. It sounds ridiculous, but if you want to watch your students struggle and then struggle through something to a point of success and bring that opportunity, we need to bring opportunities for meaningful failure to our students. Buy something from IKEA and give it to your students. I'm not even kidding.
I know you're not.
I did this with my
Dude,
8th
that's
grade.
so
Towards
amazing.
the end of my tenure in the classroom, I was just like doing whatever because I knew I was going to phase out. And those kids probably got the best of me.
Yeah.
But I would buy an IKEA dresser, chef's kiss.
Yeah.
It occupies them for hours. They have to infer the directions because there are no words. They have to work as a team. They all play to each other's strengths and communicate. And at the end, if it's built properly, we now have a functioning piece of furniture for the classroom that everyone feels ownership of. In the beginning, it's funny because it's all Allen wrenches and those little wooden pegs and nothing makes sense. And by the end, they either, this is my accent coming out. If the drawer slides in smoothly, they know they did it, right? And it's not an A+ or a B. It's persevering through a difficult situation, problem solving. That's going to be the sweet spot. We can have as much AI as we want. We're the millennials will make sure that those durable skills are attended to.
Because Gen X, like me, screwed everything up for everyone. And there is some truth to that, honestly. But what I would say is those kind of moments, those provocational drop an IKEA box in the room and go, ready, go.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, what? My favorite, right? You called out two of my favorite things. One is when a teacher is willing to admit they're wrong, the utmost respect for a teacher. The second one is, provocational, open-ended. And when I train other teachers, they ask me, what does open-ended mean? I was like, keep going back. Like, if you think it means this, go even simpler. And when somebody looks at you for guidance, you look at them like you have no idea. Because like you said, when you open the door to not just fleeting answers, that is real thinking. That is critical thinking. That is logic. And what do we look at in society as the biggest issue that, talk about Gen X, talk about the baby boomer generation. That is the biggest piece missing. Critical thinking and logic. When you can't trust data that's legitimate and peer reviewed and issue because, it requires critical thinking. I think because of our school system, and I could go on, get a shoebox and stand on it. We've really looked at what does a group of thought leaders that are giving conversational talks, whatever, what do they think smart is? And then that's crafted. And then every child has to conform to that. Right? When I do What is Smart, where we talk to, I would love to have you on, just given your knowledge, is
Absolutely.
we talk to folks about that question. So if I can talk to Harvard's Project Zero, if I can talk to Boston College with Dr. Damian Bevel, if I can talk to all these amazing, brilliant thinkers, and no one has the same answer, then who is anyone really to decide what success means for a child, and for a child to know that they matter? We skip over so many kids because of this grade system that we swim to, because it's a destructive feeling to get an F.
It's such a scary place. When earlier in my career, in EdTech specifically, I wrote about so many teachers being afraid to embrace the human element. The immediate side of that is chaos and anarchy. Great classroom management. That is very scary to me. Classroom management is an evergreen best practice, but it doesn't need to look like students regurgitating answers or being quote unquote well behaved. It needs to look like you're all participating in some sort of intellectual academic discourse that everyone can join into and feel like they're valued. If the fire alarm goes off and you got to get those kids out of that classroom, they know you're in charge.
That's right.
That's classroom management. Not that you can hear a pin drop all day long. That's very scary.
That's scary to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that we need to sort of reframe also the way that we're thinking about what classroom management is, what the human element. I would know immediately if my students were off. If they were off, I would just be like, guys, what's up? What's up? We just got yelled at over lunch. We're all done. Some plan do now is, it doesn't actually matter because you guys are coming in heavier than you usually are. And we have to figure that out first. But that also is at a point where we weren't teaching to routinize scripts, and there was flexibility in the day. So if I went off book a little bit, we had the opportunity to go off book a little. And I think that when the students see that you go off book, to make sure they're okay, to check in, to create opportunities for agency discussion, process, whatever it might be. When you say, okay, guys, now I need 2 hard periods of learning because we just chatted for 15 minutes about my Converse sneakers. Then they'll give it to you. They will match you in your vulnerability and they will blow you away. But our teachers need to feel enabled. Our districts need to feel less pressurized, and it goes all the way up.
No, gosh. Yeah, I think Edmentum might lose an employee. No, I'm kidding. Maybe not. And we'll cut that out. But that means
baby candy, earmuffs.
Yeah, exactly. No, I absolutely love your take on learning. It sounds to me, again, because I kind of same class, if you will, is we've been in classrooms. We know what's going on. I know through trial by fire that initially when I had the audacity to think that I was any better than a learner in the classrooms, we all are human beings. We all deserve the same basic human respect. And when you show it, right, in a classroom, you almost don't need classroom management. You said it. It's if your learners know that you respect them and you have their back and you are just one of them in this democratic society that we've built in the classroom, the moment where even if it doesn't make sense, even if you're hey, you guys got to do this bullshit test, they'll be okay, and they'll try their best because there's not that air of, pretentiousness or ego within the classroom. I always say, if we want to be better educators, we have to be better at it. And we have to commit to that, right? And the practice of that. And that's really hard in a day and age where teaching is a job that nobody wants. I'm sitting.
And they don't get paid enough money to do it.
Correct.
The incentives are low.
And then a guy like me is saying, dedicate yourself to personal, improvement. Be better. It is true. I do feel we have to be better for our kids to be the people we want them to be, and we're not that. They see right through it. Kids are so intuitive, like you said, give them the opportunity and they will thrive. I've seen kids do amazing things. And that's the best advice we can give teachers out there is be on the ground with them. Engage in the wars as a mutual engagement. This isn't sadly, because I'm in early education, I went to a kindergarten conference, public school kindergarten conference in Virginia. I'm right outside of DC. And, the whole concept or the whole culture and theme around the conference was control of learning. Watch how fast I can line my kids up. You know what I mean? And to me, that's yucky. Yeah. But the goal is success metrics. And this was as of 3 years ago. success metrics is how much control. To me is, it's why I built the schools I built, is because what if we created a school where the core message is that the world needs humanity? And what we find is as we send learners into schools, in public schools in elementary, you see these kind of whole child, fully well-rounded, confident human beings, no matter what. So I absolutely, again, love your take. We really appreciate your time today. We'll definitely have to talk a little bit further about how we can work together. From FETC, actually, where can they find you on the interwebs if they want to check out the work you're doing?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Tatiana Ciccarelli, the world's longest name. My parents, if you know, neighbors there.
Russian, Italian?
No, you know what?
Get it all the time? Ukrainian Italian?
So I'm just Italian. My first name is super Slavic, but I'm just
Full-on New York Italian.
That's right.
With the rays. Yeah. I can say this, my first wife was from Buffalo. Her mom was full of...
Go Bills! Go Bills! Let's go!
Buffalo does have charm. We'll give it that.
We have a lot of audience that will appreciate that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
From FETC 2026, Anchoring Voices. You heard it from Tatiana first. Get out there, be better educators.
We said so.
And because we said so. Have a fantastic day.